I can't tell you how much I sympathize with the way everybody has had to endure this unbelievably testing and challenging time.
Catherine, Princess of Wales, has been officially elevated to the top position in the royal power structure. What will the Princess of Wales do with her newfound power? What does this deliberate marginalization and elevation reveal about the inner strength, family tensions, and planned survival instincts of the world's most famous royal family? Welcome back to our channel, where we provide updates and untold stories about Catherine, Princess of Wales, and her royal family. We bring you exciting news. In a tense family discussion, they asked him to cut all ties with Camilla's family, a shocking request that has rocked the royal family. The revelation has sparked intense speculation, raising questions about potential rifts, loyalty, and the stability of the royal family. But why did William and Anne push for such a drastic move? The answer could shake up the future of the royal family. This is a sign that the British royal family is going through a major and important transition. Official decree amending regulations on the titles of State Councillor and Royal Councillor. One decree, two signatures, one objective: keep the crown steady in uncertain times. Buckingham released it in a short notice. No fanfare, no spectacle, just the signatures of the King and the Princess Royal on thick paper with one core line: ensure continuity and efficiency of the monarchy. The essence: a recalibration of the Regency and the Councillors of State framework. In operational terms, the consort is no longer an automatic constitutional backup. The new standard is frontline service. Whoever actually works takes the duty. Titles aren't enough. The structure is slimmer, the line direct to the line of succession. From technical adjustment to power restructure is a short leap. The reasons aren't hidden: health of key figures, the thin bench under crisis pressure, and a long-stated strategy: a slimmed-down monarchy. Context: late 2022. The Councillors of State list was reinforced with Princess Anne and the Duke of Edinburgh. Back then it looked sensible, as some members were no longer full-time working royals. By 2024-2025, reality stress-tested the system. Illness, injury, stacked public duties. Operational gaps showed. Result: a demand for a shorter, sharper, directly accountable command spine. At the center of the new text stands Catherine, Princess of Wales. Not just a soft symbol. Her role is explicitly defined: Chief Advisor on Royal Family Welfare, Public Engagement Strategy, and the Crown's modern identity. This isn't ceremonial labeling. It is a planning function, from early childhood, mental health, to how the monarchy speaks to a society run by algorithms. Beside her is Princess Anne. Her place in the document is not decorative. She is given responsibility for enforcement, discipline, procedure, the correctness of every clause. The familiar image: the gatekeeper, works hard, speaks little. The hand that holds the standard so reform doesn't drop tradition. The hard question appears immediately: where is Camilla in the new layout? The answer is written in administrative language, but the impact is very human. The Queen's constitutional backup role is trimmed. Her focus shifts to public programs: reading, domestic violence support, osteoporosis awareness. For supporters, that's a cool-headed choice to mitigate operational risk. For skeptics, it looks like a cold corporate move: bloodline and service capacity over sentiment. Enter it into the record: the change pillars. Read slowly, one by one. The frontline standard: only actively working members can shoulder state duties when contingencies arise. Shorter command chain: Sovereign, Prince of Wales; Strategic Advisor, Catherine. On the same information plane: fewer layers, less lag. Oversight: Anne conducts enforcement, Edward supports operational nodes. Transparency principle: responsibility by function, not by vanity title. Media angle: the door to the old confessional stage closes. No more entertainment shows, posing as live absolution. In its place: short statements, long actions, accountability you can measure. A message aimed straight at the post-truth media ecosystem: don't demand the story, count the outcomes. Human ledger: the balance sheet of people. The cost of restructure isn't paid in words. It's paid in the private lives of those standing in the storm. Catherine, a mother of 3, just through a health scare, still showing up to speak evidence about early years. Pressure up, but responsibility frame clearer. William, the protective door: few words, weighty decisions. His equation is to keep the family and keep the institution. Anne, a straight line in a maze, discipline without theatrics. Yet that discipline calms the collective mood. Camilla, repositioned, separating affection from constitutional duty. still serving, but no longer on the emergency line. The central proposition of today's bulletin fits in 3 words: legitimacy, performance, public trust. Legitimacy: empower the right people for the right tasks. Put the line of succession at the center. Cut confusion in crises. Performance: fewer people, faster flow, clearer criteria. Public trust: speak less, do right, explain on the record. There are risks. All restructures have them. A slice of the public fond of Camilla will feel bruised. Those who enjoy backstage narrations will miss the drama. Tabloids will chafe at fewer words to sensationalize. But the aim of the decree is not to please. It is to preserve operational speed in a lean state. Next question. In true hearing divided by expose cadence, what changes on the ground exactly? On paper, a coordination frame for emergency delegation. In practice, a movement of center, from consort as honor to consort, level strategic coordination. In collective memory, a line in the sand, from ceremony time to outcome time. Note the value axis forming under the surface. Honor: do not let the crown become a TV segment. Discipline: short process. Real people, real tasks. Service: every change must land as public benefit. Children, mental health, education, culture. That axis explains why Catherine is placed at the center of the new map. Not for pictures, but for her ability to turn empathy into soft policy. Not for a style book, but for the durability of a quiet power figure in rough seas. A final operational note for those who like the fine print. The internal royal decree interprets and extends existing law. This approach avoids political collisions while locking the mechanism faster. Think of it as an OS update. Silent, yet it reassigns access rights and reorders priorities of the core processes. A single decree, but the new sinew of the institution. Along that sinew, the king architects the slim form, Anne keeps time and standard, William carries executive weight, and Catherine becomes the modern heart, able to speak to younger publics, to act with data, to preserve the dignity of a queen in waiting. This isn't just a scene change, it is a new work order that puts capacity to serve ahead of demands to perform. From the moment the text takes effect, the royal hotline is shorter, clearer, and harder to fail. 3 dates, 2 rooms, 1 fear: operational failure. That was the mood music long before the signatures dried. What looks clean on paper was tempered in weeks of blunt, sometimes uncomfortable, conversations across Balmoral and Windsor. The institution was not chasing a headline. It was closing an operational gap. Enter it into the record, the pressure timeline. Late 2022. Reinforcement of councillors of state with Princess Anne and the Duke of Edinburgh. A tidy patch. It held until it didn't. Early 2024. The king's diagnosis goes public. Backup theory becomes day-to-day planning. Spring-summer 2024. A cascade. The Princess of Wales steps back to treat her health. Later, the Princess Royal suffers a concussion. The bench looks thin. Calendar knot. Duty rosters creak. Autumn 2024. Early 2025. Working sessions behind closed doors. What must change now so the crown does not stall later? Inside those rooms, sentiment was set aside. Anne argued for a clear spine. Short lines, measurable duties, zero ambiguity at the top. William asked for a model that protects both the family and the institution from media extraction. The private secretary stressed fail-safes: who acts, on what trigger, with what written authority, and how to unwind when the sovereign returns to full pace. The answer took shape as a framework, not a gesture. Design premises, read aloud, slowly. Succession first. The line of succession is the organizing principle, not an ornament. Lean core. Working capacity beats inventory of titles. No absentee authority. If you don't serve actively, you don't exercise constitutional backup. Evidence over optics. Judge by delivered service and documented outcomes. Not exposure or applause. Reversible mechanics. Emergency powers must phase in and phase out cleanly, leaving no procedural scars. How do you build that into daily life? With mechanics, not metaphors. Mechanics when the lights turn amber. Trigger states. Amber, anticipated constraint. Red, active constraint. Activation window. Within 72 hours of a red state. A written delegation minute cites the clause, lists the acting officers, and publishes the duty scope to the court circular. Command chain. Sovereign, where possible, Prince of Wales Strategic Advisor, Catherine. Designated portfolio leads. Health, Commonwealth, Education, Digital Trust. Oversight. Princess Anne audits the activation. Scope checks, time box, conflict triggers, and sunset clauses. Her notes are archived. Her questions are not rhetorical. Unwind rule. When the sovereign resumes full capacity, delegated functions auto-revert. Any policy steps taken under delegation are reviewed within 14 days for ratification or revision. This is not theater. It is plumbing. The fewer leaks, the less noise. Where Camilla fits without euphemism. Real people live under these lines. The decree moves the Queen's role out of the emergency lane and into sustained public service. Literacy, domestic, violence awareness, osteoporosis, advocacy. That is still heavy lifting. It is also not constitutional backup. Some will call it a demotion. Others will see prudence, reduce points of failure, clarify who answers the phone when the phone must be answered. Both readings will exist. The framework is built to survive both. There was another brittle seam to seal: perception of private benefit. Past practices, consultancies adjacent to duchy operations, legacy arrangements that looked fine on a spreadsheet but messy in a headline were reviewed. The Duchy of Cornwall tightened procurement and advisory protocols under the Prince of Wales. The principle is boring by design. No gray zones around money, access, or influence. Boredom, here, protects trust. Catherine's office built for service, not spotlight. The words chief advisor only matter if they produce outcomes. What does that look like? Family welfare docket, school calendars, medical privacy, rota planning, cyber risk shielding for minors. Deliverable, less exposure, more normal childhood. Public engagement strategy, focus portfolios, early years, mental health, arts, travel cadence, partner vetting, post-visit evidence capture. Deliverable, fewer ribbon cuttings, more measurable impact. Modern identity of the crown, language, tone, digital presence. The monarchy is not an influencer. It must, however, be legible to people raised on feeds. Deliverable, clarity without performance. Her working style is unglamorous. Briefing binders, site calls with practitioners, dashboards, dignity in front of a camera, databases behind it. It is not dramatic. It is effective. Anne's Doctrine 4, non-negotiables. Work counts. Attendance isn't service. Outcome island. Duty before feeling. Family sentiment ends where the red lines begin. Silence is a tool, not a void. We do not litigate private pain in public. Receipts. If it wasn't on paper, it wouldn't have happened. This doctrine offends no one and disciplines everyone. It is why the document bears her signature. It is why the implementation is likely to stick. Risk register because grown institutions plan for drag. Optics risk. Sidelining the consort invites cold palace narratives. Mitigation. Let the work speak. Publish annual service metrics across portfolios. Legal risk. A decree interpreting statute will attract constitutional commentary. Mitigation. Tie clauses tightly to existing acts. Solicit private review from counsel. Keep Parliament briefed without seeking new legislation. Public sentiment risk. Loyalists of Camilla feel bruised. Mitigation. Sustain her program funding. Keep her schedule steady. Show continuity of care. Media risk. Fewer quotes. Lewd air spin. Mitigation. Short statements. Long records. Redirect question to outcomes. 100-day scorecard what success looks like early. No missed constitutional duties. At least 3 cross-portfolio engagements led by Catherine that produce measurable policy follow-ups. Commitments. Pilots. Funding. Or standards. A clean audit on the first emergency delegation drill. A visible, well-attended program day led by the Queen that reminds the public where her energies live now, without broaching constitutional lanes. An oversight note from Anne's office published in summary. What was triggered, for how long, with what exit. Communications in a post-confessional era. A line has been drawn. The palace will not feed the genre of televised absolution. Health remains private, unless it intersects with duty. Even then, the language will be spare. The institution will talk less. It will file more. That is the point. What about Harry and Andrew? The decree does not rehearse old stories. It sets a standing rule. Frontline means active. If you are not active, you are not in the emergency loop. That closes questions neatly, if not softly. It also spares the public the ritual of periodic speculation. What changes for William? The Prince of Wales carries executive weight in a tighter frame. It is not more theatrics. It is more accountability. He and his advisor, his wife, must divide the day, one eye on the calendar of duty, one eye on the fabric of family life. The difference now is documentary. Who decided, when, on which authority? The paper trail will be clear. That protects them as much as it constrains them. Why now? Really? Because the crown is a continuity machine. The fewer moving parts at the top, the more reliable the machine. The decree spares the crown. The the drama of ambiguity. It tells insiders who holds which wrench when the engine coughs. The framework was not born for spectacle, it was built for storms. If the weather holds, few will notice its steel. If the weather breaks, the system will hum short lines, clear rolls, receipts on file. In the next part, we open the legal skeleton, the clauses that interpret statute, the counselor matrix that now governs activation, and the 3 sunset valves that keep emergency power from overstaying its welcome. Plain words, hard law. That is how the framework intends to live, not as palace gossip, as clauses that interpret statute, constrain discretion, and leave a paper trail strong enough to stand when memories bend. There are 3 pillars of legality. First, an interpretive authority in the form of a royal instrument that clarifies how existing acts are to be applied in specific contingencies without claiming to rewrite Parliament. Second, clear delegation mechanics that define a repeatable method for activating, limiting, and unwinding emergency duties. Third, accountable oversight that functions inside the family's working core and remains evidenced and auditable. The framework does not seek drama, it seeks defensibility. Definitions matter because words become handcuffs. An amber state is an anticipated constraint on the sovereign's ability to discharge duties within 14 days. Planning begins but no powers shift. A red state is an active constraint, medical, geographical, or security, preventing the sovereign from discharging a defined duty. Delegation may occur. A frontline member is a royal currently and continuously undertaking public duties, as recorded in the court circular over the prior 12 months, with duly recorded health leaves allowed. A delegation minute is the signed document that cites the clause, names the acting officer or officers, and defines scope, duration, and report-back requirements. A sunset is the automatic expiry of delegated authority, unless expressly renewed by the same or higher authority with reasons law. A system that can be gamed will be gamed. Definitions shrink the playground. Clause 1. Application of counselors. When a red state is declared for a specific duty, the palace appoints the minimal number of acting officers needed to discharge that duty, prioritized by line of succession and frontline status. Consort status alone does not confer priority. Clause 2. The Catherine Mandate. The strategic advisor, Princess of Wales, is empowered to design, coordinate, and evaluate public engagement and family welfare policies, but not to execute constitutional acts reserved to the sovereign or counselors. She signs policy guidance notes and does not sign proclamations. Clause 3. Oversight in motion. Anne Clause. Any delegation minute is co-signed by the oversight officer, Princess Royal, or her delegate. She may by written note narrow scope, shorten duration, or require additional reporting. Her dissent, if any, is logged and preserved. Clause 4. No ghost authority. Members without frontline status shall not be named in any delegation minute, save for ceremonial presence clearly marked as non-executive. Clause 5. Conflicts and procurement. No acting officer may authorize payments, contracts, or advisory relationships that directly or indirectly benefit first-degree relatives or household staff without prior clearance from the Lord Chamberlain's office and notation in the Register of Interests. Clause 6. Health and privacy boundaries. Medical details are disclosed only to the extent necessary to justify activation or explain postponement of public duties. The privacy minimum is observed, so diagnosis specifics are optional, while duty impact is mandatory. Clause 7. Records and retention. All delegation minutes, oversight notes, and guidance notes are archived. A quarterly abstract is prepared for the Privy Council, stating what activated, when, why, how long, and how it ended. Clause 8. The Sunset Triad. Every delegation carries 3 sunsets: time, scope, and review, and if any expires without renewal, authority lapses automatically. Clause 9. Reversibility. Upon cessation of the red state, delegated authority snaps back to the sovereign, and any acts taken under delegation are reviewed within 14 days for ratification or refinement. Clause 10. The Quiet Rule. The palace shall not litigate family pain in public. Statements are brief, factual, and bounded by duty impact. Less talk, more record. The counselor matrix exists to remove guesswork. Its horizontal axis covers duty types, countersignature, proclamation, investiture, council attendance, letters, patent, routine assent, and emergency orders. Its vertical axis lists eligible actors: the sovereign, the Prince of Wales, the Princess Royal, oversight, the Duke of Edinburgh, the strategic advisor, policy only, and other frontline members. Operating rules are simple. If the sovereign can act, the sovereign acts. If a duty is time-critical and ministerially prepared, a single counselor may suffice. Otherwise, two for higher significance acts. The strategic advisor may sit in drafting, frame public impact, and set evaluation metrics. She does not execute the act. The oversight officer does not co-sign state acts. She co-signs the delegation minute and audits its execution. Examples: clarify the matrix. Routine assent is executed by the sovereign. If a red state is active, the Prince of Wales, plus the Duke of Edinburgh, or another frontline member may act. Privy Council attendance is fulfilled by the sovereign, or, under red state, by the Prince of Wales with oversight audit. Limited, non-military emergency orders require the Prince of Wales plus one additional frontline member and an oversight note within 24 hours. Public engagement directives are issued by the strategic advisor as guidance notes, logged and reviewed quarterly. To prevent drift, 3 sunset valves end power in different ways. The time sunset prevents any delegation from extending beyond 28 days without explicit renewal and recorded reasons. The scope sunset binds authority to specific tasks. Once a task is complete or an event passes, the authority ends. The review sunset requires a 14-day post-read review. If it is not completed, further activations under the same trigger are frozen until the review is on file. Sunsets prevent drift. Drift corrodes trust. Systems prove themselves in motion, so 2 scenarios are instructive. Scenario A is the chronic calendar. The sovereign faces a treatment cycle that collides with a scheduled council. Amber becomes red for 48 hours. A delegation minute names the Prince of Wales as acting attendee. The Princess Royal cosigns and limits scope to that meeting only. During the activation, the strategic advisor prepares a public impact brief mapping, which policies intersect public services, and which to monitor after the meeting. Within 72 hours, an oversight note logs attendance, recorded decisions, and assigned follow-ups. Sunset lands automatically. Ratification review files within 14 days. There is no drama and no vacuum. Scenario B is the sudden ceremony. An investiture must proceed. The sovereign is fit for a short window, but not for the full program, indicating an amber state. The Prince of Wales handles part of the investiture, and the sovereign appears briefly, preserving symbolism. The delegation minute sets a narrow task list and a 3-hour time box. Communications state in one paragraph that a schedule adjustment is due to routine medical planning, without details beyond duty impact. Tradition remains intact, human limits are respected, and the records are clean. Procurement, money, and the odor test support the bedrock of public patience. Advisory work linked to duchy entities requires open, tender, or documented sole source justification recorded in the Register of Interests. Family-adjacent participation is allowed for volunteering in public causes, but not for invoicing. Gifts and hospitality above a modest threshold are reportable. Declines are logged as well as acceptances. This is unglamorous, and it is necessary. Communication discipline insists on talking less and filing more. Releases follow a fixed pattern. One lead sentence that states the action taken, one clarifying sentence that states why it matters to duty rather than to gossip, and an optional third sentence pointing to the next scheduled update or the outcome metric. There is no speculative Q&A. Questions are redirected to outcomes. Quarterly abstracts are published. If media ask for feelings, the palace offers facts. If pressed for private details, the palace offers silence. Silence is policy when policy is enough. Safeguards prevent personalization from derailing the system. If the strategic advisor and the oversight officer disagree on scope, the matter goes to the Lord Chamberlain for a 24-hour ruling. If a delegation minute directly affects a project where a signer has a recorded conflict, a designated deputy signs instead. An annual external review by quietly commissioned legal counsel evaluates a sample of delegation minutes and oversight notes and reports to the Privy Council. When people get hot, paper stays cool. Catherine's policy seat matters because policy is where popularity becomes public value. The strategic advisor's position converts empathy into priorities, partners, and proof. Priorities such as early years, mental health, and the arts become pilots, training cohorts, and evaluation plans. Partners are chosen from frontline practitioners and evidence-oriented NGOs, with fewer ribbon stages and more working rooms. Proof arrives as post-visit action notes with timelines, responsible parties, and concrete measures such as attendance, uptake, funding unlocked, and standards adopted. The role does not rewrite statutes, countersign state acts, or turn the monarchy into an NGO. It frames, aligns, and asks for receipts. Anne's oversight works like a metronome. Before activation, a pre-activation checklist tests trigger validity, tight scope, and report back responsibility. During activation, a mid-course note keeps the time box honest and cuts scope when drift appears. After activation, a closeout memo confirms whether targets were met on time, what was learned, and what must be codified for next time. The notes are blunt and boring, and that is their strength. The constitutional weather will include scholarly debate over interpretive instruments, headlines framing the trimming of the consort's lane as palace coldness, and a human ache as roles are redrawn. Yet the Constitution functions less like a marble statue and more like a maintenance schedule. This framework is a service interval. It changes the oil, tightens loose bolts, and documents who holds the wrench, for how long, and under whose eyes. When the crown must move, it now moves on rails, short, audited, and built to return to rest. The legal skeleton meets the public square. Paper is calm. People are not. The first wave is narrative sorting. Supporters of the Queen read loss into new lanes and speak of cold procedure. Constitutionalists read clarity and breathe easier. Most viewers sit between, scanning for intent. The palace cannot manage feelings. It can manage evidence. That is the path. Start where sentiment begins. Fairness. If rules look tailored to personalities, trust cracks. If rules feel general and repeatable, trust thickens. So each activation must look the same from the outside. The same one. Paragraph notice, the same clock, the same follow-up note. No adjectives, no flourish. Regularity is kindness to a nervous audience. Catherine's quiet command of trust is not magic. It is repetition. Show up where lives are shaped: clinics, classrooms, community halls, and leave behind proofs that are countable. Not photos, proofs. A training cohort launched. A tool adopted by a school district. A helpline referral rate rising after a visit. These are small, dull numbers that move opinions in a way no interview ever will. Camilla's narrative will pull in two directions at once. One side will insist she was iced out. The other will say she stepped back to do the work she chose. The palace cannot arbitrate motive without hurting someone. It can show diaries, grants awarded, libraries stocked, shelters funded, output, not innuendo. If she keeps a full, coherent program, the air cools. Measurement must be public and legible. Publish a quarterly service ledger, portfolio goals, actions taken, outcomes observed, course corrections. Tie each line to a date and a place. Invite partners to co-sign the line that concerns them. The monarchy will never be a data lab, but it can honor the public by letting numbers speak before narratives set. Media will test boundaries. The answer remains the same: short statements, long records. When asked for color, give context. When asked for pain, give privacy. Let the noise peak and pass. The work must still be there when the crowd moves on. If the framework holds, what the public learns over a year is simple: steady hands, consistent rules, and a family that talks less when it matters most. That is how ceremony becomes service without ceasing to be itself. Stress tests rarely announce themselves. A foreign delegation shifts dates. A minor cyber incident slows royal web services. A medical schedule tightens. The framework doesn't emote, it classifies. Amber turns red for a defined window. A delegation minute names acting officers. Scope is trimmed. The clock starts. Oversight narrows the brief to what is essential. Constitutional duties met, symbols preserved without overreach, family impact minimized. Catherine issues a short guidance. Note that triages, work streams family welfare first, public engagement, where it adds measurable value, postpone the ornamental. Communications stay skeletal. One paragraph stating action, one line on duty impact, nothing on private pain. Rumor peaks for a day, then loses oxygen to the calendar of work. Where questions persist, the palace posts outcomes, not feelings. On the ground, visits convert into pilots with receipts. Clinics adopt a screening tool. A teacher's network trials, a classroom module. A helpline sees a documented post-visit bump. Small numbers, logged and traceable, begin to outweigh speculative narratives. Camilla keeps a clear, coherent program day library stocked. Shelters funded, reading circles expanded. The ledger shows continuity. Motive remains unlitigated. Partners do the talking. The court doesn't add adjectives. Inside, culture tightens. After-action memos are blunt. Conflicts are logged. Recusals executed. The register of interests updated. No grand speeches, just timestamps and signatures. Boredom becomes a synonym for stability. Digital discipline hardens. A canonical page carries stamped updates. Press pools get a fact sheet, not color. Misinformation is met with a link to records, not debate. The rule holds: short statements, long archives. Abroad, headlines split along familiar lines. But identical notices in every market deny leverage to leaks. Predictability earns a kind of quiet respect. Even critics concede the system is readable. Family privacy gains teeth. School calendars are shielded by policy, not goodwill. Imagery of minors carries traceable watermarks. Syndication agreements include penalties. A few swift enforcements set a deterrent. At quarter close, a service ledger appears. Goals declared, actions taken, outcomes observed, course corrections admitted. An oversight note summarizes what triggered, for how long, and how it ended. One lesson recorded. Ambiguous vocabulary fuels noise. A glossary is appended to future notices. Net effect, after months. The crown looks smaller in cast and heavier in delivery. William's executive cadence steadies. Anne's metronome holds. Catherine's quiet power converts public warmth into policy steps that can be checked a month later. Ceremony has not vanished. It has been right-sized. What remains is endurance. The next 12 months will test repetition. Can the machine file, measure, and correct at the same tempo when attention drifts? The answer will live in numbers, youth trust indices, early years pilots scaled, an emergency drill passed without spectacle, and a public that learns to expect evidence before story.